Hey, welcome to week 14 in our class. As we continue on with our bootstrap, either code along, which I noticed some of you are doing, some of you are doing straight notes. It's fine. I will tell you, I think those of you coding along are going to have a little bit of a easier time, just because you will have had the experience. But either way, it should be fine. So the items that we have this week for our hands-on and our current topics, which by the way, let's just stop here. Go ahead and open up your notes because I want you to take some notes as normal on the classwork topics. Is that, okay, so now that you're there, so I'm going to actually, I think for the first time this semester, have two videos from last semester, okay? And it's going to be the hands-on, which is a decide and build, okay? So this is actually a video from me last semester. Now, last semester, as I may have mentioned that at one point, is that I was using FTP to uh, upload files into some server space. But this semester, as you've already experienced, we're using GitHub and GitHub pages and the command line, which I think is a wonderful improvement. So when I talk about in this video, and also it'll be in the one after, which will also be from last semester, I do talk about that idea of the FTP. And part of the reason I'm actually okay with this is that even though we're not doing it, I think it is good for you to at least see conceptually, or see, and not conceptual, but help you conceptualize the idea of what FTP is, right? Even though we did one discussion on it, it's still going to be around, and there probably is a chance you will need to use it. But it's just becoming, like we talked about, a bit outdated. So you get to see me do that in these two videos. And I really thought after reviewing them today that they're really good examples of the work that you need to do this week. So I've decided to use them. But with the preference, and that goes in your notes, is I'm going to show FTP. So when I show FTP, you're going to say to yourself, oh, that's right, we don't do FTP in this class, right? We do Git, right? So when I say upload to the server, that means push, right? So just keep that in mind as I go as you watch those videos, so that you don't get confused thinking there's a piece that you hadn't done. All right. Okay. So week 14, the decide and build. I'll let you watch that. I think it'll help you. But I think when I was reviewing this, we might have been just a little bit of a step ahead. But I ended last time talking about this, so I thought it doesn't hurt to show it again. So I'm going to bring up my local directory, right? So here's my GitHub IO. And last time I had you place the template that you've chosen into a template directory. By the way, in the video I ended up calling it the name of the template, and that's okay too. But I'm just telling you, you will see that differently. And then in here, right, here are the template files. And I talked about last time going ahead and starting to place the content from the template into your directory, what we call your root directory, right? So if we look at this, the files in here are the ones that get uploaded, and this is considered the root of your website. Even though, right, there are other files, because the root is often considered the main directory, but for the website, the way you're building it, this is considered in our case, and again, this could be different based on the technology you're using, right? This would be, for us, the root directory. So when I say take the template and start building it into your root directory, that's what I mean. So I'm actually going to do one more with you just to give you that experience, because what we had before, and this is where I ended up, right, is I ended up just putting the HTML in there. And then I said, you know, what am I missing? And it's the CSS, right? So let me just go ahead and open up the directory. Let me open up. I have so many different directories. Here we go. Open up this one, right? So here we have the index file that I loaded over. But what happens here is that it's going to reference some, in this case, it's going to reference some bootstrap. local files, right? So in this case, I could either change that to a GitHub directory, or sorry, a CDN reference, or I could just do it here. So we're looking at vendor, right? So in this case, here's vendor, bootstrap, right? So it's looking in that directory. So for me to make this look like it looks in the template directory, I have to build that into the root. Now, yes, you can just copy the files, right? You could just take all of these files and build it or copy it into that. But I think it's really beneficial to really just kind of do it one step at a time. So in this case, if I was to look at that directory and also CSS clean, so this is the template specific CSS. This is the bootstrap CSS, right? So I could easily convert that into the CDN. Matter of fact, let's just do that. Let me just go ahead and do, right? So CDN, bootstrap, and I think these are all built on version 3, right? So I can see that, and this is what we did last time, right? Is the idea of just grabbing a CSS file. So I'm going to first do this, right? Copy that and come back over to my editor. And so in this case, the reason I can do this is that, make sure it, yep, CSS file, bootstrap, it's a minified. So now I don't have to worry about moving that subdirectory. Now your template's going to look different, right? But probably have most of the files. The Gulp.js for me is big. We are going to talk about a little bit of NPN or build tools in a couple weeks, but don't worry too much about that file for now. And if you have a JSON file, don't worry about that for now as well. That's something we'll talk about later. But coming back to here, right? So now I have that. Now the other thing I'll need is this CSS clean blog. So let me go into my template, and I see I have a CSS blog, and then I have a minified. So minified means it takes out all the spaces, right? So that's a minified version. So in this case, the chances are probably not that I would modify the CSS, right? So what I'd do is I'd come over to my directory here, right? And I would do, I know it's hard for you to see this, but I'm going to do a new directory. Well, I think I can do it right here actually. Just do new folder. I'm going to call it CSS, and it creates it there. So then all I'd have to go is in my template, go into my CSS file, and I'm just going to, in this case, I'm just going to, there's a couple ways I could do it. I could just copy it. So I could actually just select the whole thing, right? Select that whole, copy that, and then come into my CSS file, our CSS directory, right here. I'm going to do a new file, and I want to name it the same, right? Again, you could copy it over, but I think it's good experience. Oh, I don't want to do that. What I want to do here is I want to do file, save as, and I'm going to call it clean blog.min.css, and I'm going to make sure by looking at the file that I've done the right thing, and I'm going to hit save, and now I have that in there, right? So that's what I mean by building this thing, so you can kind of see a step along the way. By the way, I need to paste that in. That would be helpful, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save my CSS file. I'm going to save my index.html file, and these are all local right now, and I'm going to go ahead and open it in the browser and look to see, oh cool, so I can see it's starting to come in. I can see I'm still missing some things, right? I can see I'm missing some images, so let's just go do that real quick. So I'm going to come over here, right? So I got images. I got that CDN version, but now in my directory, is also called IMJ. Now these I'm just going to copy, right? So I'm going to take, oh, okay, I'll reveal them. I know if there's an edit copy. There we go. There is an edit copy. And then I can come up here, and then I can just, in that directory, do edit paste. And it should, let's see if it does. Not sure why it's not. Edit, paste. Let's try it one more time. Go edit, copy. I'm basically doing file operations in the browser or in the editor, and I guess sometimes that doesn't work so great. So that's why probably putting them outside or building them. Do this, reveal in the Finder. Might be a little easier. So here are all the files that I need, which by the way, in your work this week, you're going to do some image optimizations. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to go into that images directory and I'm going to paste them in there. Cool. Right. Now these are just images. These are locations, right? So these are just images that are out there. So now if I go to my browser and I hit refresh, you can see that this is starting to come together pretty nicely. Okay. So you can build this up, figure out what you need to bring over. Most likely it's the three, which is the files, the index file, the other HTML files if you want those, because you're going to end up building this for yourself. Let's go into the template and see if there's anything else. So there is some less stuff. We don't get into less, which is basically a preprocessor for CSS. So that won't be needed, but JavaScript, let's see what they have. So they do have a little bit of stuff in here we could look at and see if we need. Looks like it's got a little jQuery in there. So I could start playing around and figure out where this is needed and where something might break, and so I could just again bring it over. But the way I'd figure that out is I'd go into that index file and I would look at, again, going through here, figuring out what I need. So this is, I got a font awesome, so I have a font, so again, font awesome is there's a CDN version, so I could reference it as a CDN version. I could go out and find that. These are referenced out on the, so here's what I want you to know. When you're looking at these, if it starts with HTTP, that means it's a reference out to the web. So you don't have to worry about having it in your local directory. Okay, so that is as well. And this one I could convert. See, the reason I couldn't convert the the clean blog men CSS is it was specific to this template. Okay, so that's why I needed to actually bring that into my root directory of my website from the template. Okay, so that's what, so again, I'm telling you to do it this way. I'm suggesting you do it this way. You can do it however you want. I'm suggesting you do it this way because it just makes your life better, because you can really understand what's happening, right? So I'm going to do one last thing here. I'm going to go into my index file now that it's looking pretty good, right? And I can see by looking at it, and this is the stuff that should start making more and more sense as you move further and further into the Bootstrap, and getting your hands in here is a good idea, right? And I can tell that this right here, right, this is where the navigation sits. So when I look at here, right, so it hasn't really been anything new, I can see that this, now how would I know that? A couple ways, just by knowing how to read and look at HTML to see that's what represents it. But again, your developer tools, by right-clicking, inspecting, it'll actually take you to where that is in the code. I can see that I was looking at it from a mobile to see what it looks like mobile on a mobile device, right? So in this case, when I start customizing this for my own project 0, right, this is where I would both create new files and change the file name references here. So let me just walk through one, and then I think we'll be good from here on out. So let's say in here, right, so I have, right now I have a page 2, which is not a template file. So I'm actually going to end up getting rid of that file because I no longer need it. But I do have an index file that has everything I need in it. And then here's my navigation. So I'm going to create a new file that will represent my second menu option, right? For right now it's called about. It's looking for a physical file. I haven't brought that file over from my template, right? It's setting over here. I can see it's right there, but I could just go over here and look at it. And if I copied that over, I'd have to make all those changes that I did to make it work, okay, which you can do. But what I'd rather do is make it a little bit easier for myself. I'm just going to take my index file and think about that navigation I had you guys do. And so I'm going to take this file, I'm going to do File, Save As, and I'm in my editor. And so now in here, let's make sure I'm in the right directory. I am. Let's say one of my major menu items was tools, okay? Because we've talked a lot about tools, tooling, tools in this class. So what I'm taking is that index file. I'm going to give it a new name. It's still the index file, okay, as far as what's in it. But now it's the same content, but now with a new file name, okay? As a matter of fact, you can see it showed up here. So the next thing I would do here is I'd go to my About and I'd call it Tools, which, by the way, notice how the editor's trying to help me, right? And then I'd go here and I'd type tooling, maybe, okay? Tooling, tools, whichever. Now, I'm going to go ahead and look at this. By the way, I need to go ahead and hit save, right? Save that. Go over to my site, get out of my developer tools, refresh my page. Did I save this file? Tools. Oh, this is really good. I'm glad. You know, when you do this stuff live, sometimes you forget. So actually what I was doing here was I was changing it in my tools file. So what I was really needing to do was come over to my index file, and which this workflow has definitely changed over the years, and you're doing it at the very basic level. And so what I had done there is I was referencing, oh, notice that if you don't do that, the editor will actually try to help you in a way that's not helpful. So I was modifying that in the index file, in the tools file where I needed to modify it in the index file. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do tools or tooling, right? I'm going to hit save. Now, let me show you the result just so you can see this. So I'll refresh, and so now I see that. And when I click on tools, you might think nothing changed, but when you look up at your address bar here, because it's referencing your local directory, you will see that it opens a new file. So the other thing you definitely want to do pretty quickly on, right, is modify your content. And I'm going to hit save. Come back over here. Oh, and look what I did. I was in my index file, right? So again, making sure you're clear on which file you're in before you're doing stuff like this. So when I'm going to walk you through in the videos from the last semester, I was trying to just give you a little more experience with working with this template. What I recommend, honestly, is first, before you start creating these files that you're going to end up using for your project layout, is actually modify them here first in your index file, and then every time you copy them into a new file, it's already changed, right? So all the changes I was talking about here with changing either to a CDN version and all that, if you do it correctly in the index file before you start creating the other ones, just make your life a lot easier, okay? So let's just see that change in tools. Let's see here. Maybe what I did is I didn't save it, and I got tools, bootstrap here, tooling. By the way, did you notice what I did there? Was I accidentally got rid of, oh, and by the way, save it, refresh, and there we go. So I can see, so this is good because it also makes you really dig into this code to start understanding how things, because that was a subheading, that was not the regular H1. Okay, and then that show, so you just, in this, the important part of this class is really just to start understanding how to look at code and see to the best of your ability what's creating that look on the page, and then start modifying it for your own needs. This is definitely a good way to start. Okay, I hope this helps you out. Just to finalize, The two videos that you have are from last semester, but all good stuff. You'll end up building a new page on this one called images, and I'll talk about optimizing images. You got to decide and start building your project. That's an important part of this week's work. All right, have a great week. I'll see you or I'll talk to you before sometime next week, our holiday week.